Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Newshour, India's voice to the world. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Coming up in the next hour, India commits $450 million for reconstruction of cyclone-hit Sri Lanka. US President Trump renews push for Greenland. Island's leader says our decisions are made here. US strikes vessel in Eastern Pacific, killing one. President Trump urges Venezuela's President Maduro to step down. And Indians protest against a lynching of Hindu man in Bangladesh, clash with police in New Delhi. India has announced a mega $450 million reconstruction package for Sri Lanka to support its long-term recovery from the aftermath of Cyclone Ditwa. Reiterating its position as first responder, India extended relief and assistance mission across the island nation. Tripti Tripathi reports.
Reaffirming its role as a first responder and trusted neighbor, India once again stood firmly with Sri Lanka under its Neighbourhood First and Mahasagar policies. Whether during the aftermath of Cyclone Ditwa or the 2022 economic crisis, India has consistently been the first to extend support in times of need. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, who is in Colombo, announced a $450 million reconstruction package to support Sri Lanka's long-term recovery.
Recognizing the urgency of rebuilding, Prime Minister Modi directed that we now engage with the Sri Lankan government to address their priorities in that regard. The assistance package that we have proposed is worth $450 million. It will include $350 million in concessional lines of credit and $100 million of grants.
Further cementing the partnership, Dr. Jaishankar and his Sri Lankan counterpart jointly inaugurated a 120-foot dual carriageway Paley Bridge. Airlifted from India, the 110-ton bridge symbolizes swift and effective humanitarian response.
India's relief and assistance mission, Operation Sagar Bandhu, commenced on the very day that Cyclone Ditwa made landfall. Our aircraft carrier, INS Vikrant, and another ship, INS Udaygiri, were present at Colombo and delivered relief materials and thereafter also deployed helicopters.
Sri Lankan Foreign Minister Vijitha Herath lauded India's timely support, describing Dr. Jaishankar's visit as a strong reflection of the deep-rooted India-Sri Lanka friendship.
I convey our profound gratitude to Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the Government of India, and to you, Dr. Jaishankar, for India's invaluable support in assisting Sri Lanka to overcome its economic challenges.
This support builds on a legacy of assistance. In 2022, during the economic crisis, India has provided multifaceted assistance to Sri Lanka, close to $4 billion. During COVID pandemic, India supplied vaccines and essential medicines. Indian naval ship Gharial was deployed for expeditious delivery of humanitarian supplies. In 2021, India provided extensive assistance to manage a major maritime disaster involving the MV Express Pearl. In 2017, INS Kirch was deployed to provide immediate assistance due to major flooding and landslides. Earlier, Dr. Jaishankar conveyed Prime Minister Narendra Modi's message of solidarity to Sri Lankan President Anurag Kumara Dissanayake, reaffirming India's steadfast commitment to Sri Lanka's recovery and stability. Minister Jaishankar also met other officials from Sri Lankan government and discussed the implementation of relief measures. He also interacted with members of the Indian business community based in Sri Lanka and applauded the contributions towards providing relief during Cyclone Ditwa. He also interacted with Sri Lankan Tamil leaders and underlined India's commitment and efforts towards post-Ditwa reconstruction and rehabilitation. This latest move has yet again reiterated New Delhi's position as the first responder and a steady partner in Sri Lanka's path to stability. Tripti Tripathi's report for DD India.
Bangladesh remains on edge following a spate of violent incidents, including the lynching of a Hindu man. The developments have triggered protests in India and around the world, intensified political sparring and raised fresh concerns over law and order as Bangladesh heads to a crucial election.
On Tuesday, Inqilab Mancho, one of the prominent platforms that emerged during Bangladesh's July uprising, held a protest rally in Dhaka over the killing of its convener, Osman Hadi, at Shahabag. The group demanded that those responsible be brought to justice before the 13th national election and the proposed referendum, warning that impunity would undermine the democratic process. Bangladesh Nationalist Party blamed the Yunus-led interim government for deteriorating law and order situation in the country. Addressing a press briefing, BNP Secretary General Mirza Fakhrul Islam Alamgir alleged that dangerous conspiracies by certain quarters are obstructing the path to free and fair elections. Minorities in Bangladesh are poor victims of this unrest. In their support, protests were held in different parts of India. In the national capital, members of the Vishwa Hindu Parishad staged a protest outside the Bangladesh High Commission, while in Kolkata, hundreds of demonstrators marched towards the Bangladesh Deputy High Commission, condemning the violence and demanding accountability.
We've seen demonstrations against the Bangladesh High Commission this morning also, 2 days ago also, and also demonstrations against the Deputy High Commissioner of Bangladesh office in Calcutta and also in Bhopal and other places. So it is a very difficult situation because all this time, we kept taking it up with the Bangladesh people, we kept telling them, but they would not actually, do anything about it. So now it's like, a very, very strong and powerful reaction.
With political tensions rising, street protests intensifying, and concerns mounting over security of minorities, Bangladesh's fragile transition is facing its toughest test yet, even as the clock ticks towards elections. Bureau Report, DD India.
The UN Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Expression, Irene Khan, has warned that a climate of entrenched impunity is fueling mob violence in Bangladesh. Citing the interim government's failure to protect media and artistic freedoms, Khan condemned arson and vandalism targeting the Daily Star and Prothom Alo newspapers and the Chaya North Cultural Center, as well as an attack on the editor of New Age newspaper. Khan said that journalists face arrests, arbitrary detentions and killings. She accuses the authorities of allowing threats and violence to go unpunished, though observers note that her statement did not mention the recent mob lynching of Hindu youth Dibu Chandradas in Mymensingh. And joining me from Dhaka is my colleague Naval Singh Parmar. Naval Singh, how's the situation now in Bangladesh? Does it remain volatile?
In Bangladesh, situation is very critical as far as law and order situation is concerned. As per the latest report, there have been a media report that the 5 people have been killed in a clashes and gunfire between 2 rival groups over control and dominance related to land. So this kind of law and order situation where the gunshot fire and the rivalry among the groups, political groups, is very much on surface, and the people, the safety of people as well as the property is really jeopardized in the lack of confidence of police and the support by the interim government to the police force or law enforcement agency. They don't have any kind of clear guidance or direction, and at the same time they are not allowing the police force or the law enforcement agency to perform their duty impartially, because this administration, Yunus administration, is supported by the various interest group in Bangladesh. And most of them are fundamentalists or Islamic fundamentalist group, and they have their internal issues, and they are blaming each other, and now they are blaming entire Yunus administration. Openly, the NCP, National Citizen Party, who brought the change in Bangladesh and who toppled the, who were the responsible for the toppling of Sheikh Hasina government in Bangladesh, and who bring here Yunus on the helm of the Bangladesh politics. They are blaming now Yunus administration that the entire government or the part of government was responsible for the this kind of whatever the violence or law and order situation happened in Bangladesh. So there is a two political groups of political parties. One side, one part led by the BNP, they want election, free and fair election at the earliest, as they wish, they believe that they will be the clear winner in this election. At the in the second part, there are the group of political parties led by Jamaat-e-Islami and other fundamentalist parties. They feel that if the election will happen, they will lose leverage on the next government. So there is a tough war between the political parties who are now an active member and who are the active player in Bangladesh politics, barring the Awami League.
Interesting indeed. How is the security at Indian diplomatic missions in Bangladesh?
There was a incident on Thursday night at the Chittagong High Commission, Assistant High Commission, and it was a horrible thing because the crowd of hundreds of people reached the premises, near the premises of residence of Assistant High Commission of India in Chittagong, and they tried to break the barricade and they throw the stone at the residence of the Assistant High Commission. So it shows the kind of situation here in Bangladesh for the diplomatic community. But after that, the government took some serious steps, and they heightened the security arrangement in diplomatic zone in Dhaka as well as the divisional city of Bangladesh. So there is some sort of barricading, and the extra deployment of the law enforcement agencies and police force is there. But there is a restriction on movements. There is a restriction from the various embassy also, like US embassy and other embassy also warned their or alerted their nationals in Bangladesh not to venture out of diplomatic zone. That is the kind of scenario here in Bangladesh.
And talking about law and order, Naval Singh, have the killers of the Hindu man Dipu Chandra Das been brought to justice yet?
After the 2 days of the incident, there are some arrests now. Around 10 to 12 people have been arrested by the police as well as Rapid Action Battalion. And the investigation is going on. And in that investigation, first of all, rape mentioned that there is no clear evidence of alleged blasphemy against the Dipu Chandra Das. And the same thing, next day, police also clarified that it was a mishandling by the factory owner and the untimely, if the police force have reached timely at the spot, they could have saved the Dipu Chandra Das. This incident could have been avoided. But the laxity of the police force or law enforcement agency and the without clear direction and without clear mandate from the interim government, police is also feeling helpless.
All right, we'll leave you there for now. Naval Singh Parmar in Dhaka. Thank you. Appreciate it. And still to come on DD India Newshour. US President Trump announces a new class of warships named after himself. The US government releases a new batch of Epstein documents. And Poland scrambles jets as Russia hits Ukrainian areas close to its border.
Jharkhand will mesmerize you with majestic nature, rich heritage and colorful culture.
Johar. Arey, it fits perfectly.
Thank you.
Full workout ho gaya.
Ready?
Postcards from Jharkhand on National.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Newshour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. President Trump on Monday reasserted that the U.S. needs Greenland for national security. Greenland pushed back, with its Prime Minister asserting that decisions on the island's future will be made by Greenlanders alone. Denmark and Greenland jointly rejected any annexation bid, stressing that sovereignty cannot be overridden in the name of security. Nishchoy Roy has more.
A frozen island and a decades-old treaty. What began as a 1951 agreement allowing the United States to move freely and build military facilities on Denmark-governed Greenland has now thawed into a diplomatic chill between Washington, Copenhagen, and Nuuk. US President Donald Trump on Monday reasserted that the US needs Greenland for national security, naming a special envoy to push the agenda, triggering criticism from Denmark and Greenland. The US is seeking to expand its military presence on the Arctic island, including radar systems to track naval and submarine activity.
We need Greenland for national protection. They have a very small population. And I don't know, they say Denmark, but Denmark has spent no money. We need Greenland for national security, not for minerals. And if you take a look at Greenland, you look up and down the coast, you have Russian and Chinese ships all over the place.
Denmark's Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen and Greenland's Prime Minister Jens Frederik Nielsen have rejected any annexation bid, stating that Greenland belongs to its people and cannot be claimed in the name of security. Greenland's PM stressed that decisions about the autonomous territory's future would be made on the island. Meanwhile, Danish Foreign Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen summoned the US ambassador over the envoy's appointment.
We thought that we now had a US ambassador in Denmark with whom we would have a relationship throughout the kingdom. I think we have already developed a good working relationship, and it is also my impression that the ambassador has the opinion out of nowhere there is now a special US presidential representative who, accordingly to him, is tasked with taking over Greenland. This is, of course, completely unacceptable.
The European Union has emphasized the importance of maintaining Denmark's borders and sovereignty as a fundamental principle for the EU.
Preserving the territorial integrity of the Kingdom of Denmark, its sovereignty, and the inviolability of its borders is essential for the European Union.
Beyond Greenland, the bigger picture is unfolding across the Arctic, a region growing steadily more militarized as NATO countries, Russia and China all expand their strategic presence in what was once seen as the world's last quiet frontier. Nishchoy Roy's report for D-Day India.
US President Donald Trump issues a fresh warning to Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro, asking him to resign. The Venezuelan leader retorts by asking the US counterpart to focus on American domestic issue rather than threatening to oust him. This verbal duel takes place at a time when there is a massive US military buildup taking place in Puerto Rico, the likes of which have not been seen in many decades. So, is an all-out war imminent? Mohammad Absarul Hassan finds out.
Tensions are flaring up in Caribbean after the US seized 2 oil tankers linked to the Venezuelan government in international waters. President Donald Trump has confirmed that the US Coast Guard is pursuing third vessels in international waters near Venezuela. Trump issued a new warning to Nicolas Maduro, saying it would be smart for the Venezuelan leader to step down.
It probably would. I can't tell that. That's up to him what he wants to do. I think it would be smart for him to do that. But again, we're going to find out. Look, Venezuela did terrible things to the United States. They sent hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people into our open border. They sent their criminals, they sent their prisoners, they sent their drug dealers, they sent their mentally insane and incompetent people into our country more than any other country. Others did too. The Congo did.
Venezuelans have strongly slammed the United States for imposing a complete maritime blockade on tankers transporting Venezuelan energy. President Nicolas Maduro hit back, saying the US president would be better off focusing on domestic issues rather than threatening Caracas.
I've been reflecting in recent days on the illegal aggressions that have occurred. I think that President Trump could do better in his country and in the world. He would do better within his country with economic and social issues. He would do better with the world if he attended to the issues of his country, each president to their own, because it cannot be that 70% of his speeches, declarations, and time is about Venezuela.
Venezuela's key ally Moscow expressed its full support for Maduro's government. China also condemned the US latest moves as a very serious violation of international law. Venezuela denies any involvement in drug trafficking and insists that Washington is seeking to overthrow Maduro to seize the country's oil reserves, which are the world's largest. Last week, US President Donald Trump ordered a full and total blockade of all sanctioned tankers entering or leaving Venezuela, declaring Maduro's government a US-designated foreign terrorist organization. The Pentagon has deployed around a dozen of warships, including the USS Gerald R. Ford, a major aircraft carrier, and about 15,000 troops to the Caribbean Sea, which shares a significant amount of coastline with Venezuela. The region has never seen such a massive US military buildup for at least 3 decades. Venezuela has repeatedly accused Washington of seeking regime change and military expansion in Latin America, condemning the US Navy's interception of oil tankers as piracy. Mohammad Absarul Hassan for DD India.
And President Trump on Monday announced plans to build a new Trump class of battleships, which he said would be larger, faster, and 100 times more powerful than the biggest of any previous American-built warships. Speaking in the state of Florida, President Trump said that the battleships would be part of a larger vision to create what he called a golden fleet that would help ensure U.S. naval dominance. He said that the project would begin with the construction of 2 battleships and eventually be expanded to encompass 20 to 25 new vessels. He plans to meet next week with defense contractors to address what he described as slow production schedules.
Battleships are the largest, sturdiest, and most heavily armed vessel built specifically for naval combat. While America has built many new warships over the years, they've tended to be smaller and much smaller, and not conducive to where we are and where we're going, and peace through strength. These cutting-edge vessels will be some of the most lethal surface warfare ships. They will be actually the most ever built other than our submarines. We have submarines which will have, in many ways, even more lethality, and we have many of them under construction.
Russia has launched massive pre-Christmas strikes on Ukraine, targeting key energy infrastructure and plunging several regions into darkness. Neighboring Poland scrambled jets as strikes hit areas close to its border. Meanwhile, Ukraine's President Zelensky said that the assault shows that Moscow is not serious about peace talks despite ongoing diplomatic efforts.
Launched massive pre-Christmas strikes on Ukraine's energy infrastructure, killing at least 3 people and triggering widespread emergency power cuts amid freezing winter conditions. Many say that 7 days without electricity has become the norm in Odessa.
You know, there are attacks every week. Just when the power is restored, all our schedules are disrupted again. And we are left without electricity, without stability, sitting in the dark for 2 or 3 days. It is very difficult.
The attacks hit western regions hardest, prompting neighboring Poland to scramble jets to protect its airspace after strikes near the border. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said at least 13 regions were targeted, calling the assault proof that President Vladimir Putin is not serious about peace talks. Meanwhile, the director of Ukraine's defunct Chernobyl nuclear power plant has warned that a Russian strike could cause a collapse of the radiation shelter at plant. He said a direct hit or nearby missile strike could trigger vibrations strong enough to damage the steel and concrete sarcophagus protecting the reactor core. The latest strikes came a day after a Russian general was killed in a car blast in Moscow and amid separate US-led talks with both sides in Miami, which showed no breakthrough. However, Zelensky said on Tuesday that several draft documents, including on security guarantees, had been prepared after talks between US and Ukrainian officials on ending Russia's war in Ukraine. On the battlefield in the east, Russia's army claimed to have captured settlements in the Kharkiv and Dnipropetrovsk regions. On the battlefield in the east, Russia's army claimed to have captured settlements in the Kharkiv and Dnipropetrovsk regions, in a grinding advance that has accelerated in recent weeks. Rabindra Chauhan's report, DD India.
China on Tuesday urged the US to fulfill its nuclear disarmament responsibilities after a draft US Department of War report claimed that China has likely deployed more than 100 intercontinental ballistic missiles and is unwilling to engage in arms control talks. A Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson said the US should create conditions for other nuclear-armed countries to pursue disarmament, adding that China does not engage in nuclear arms race with any country.
As the superpower with the largest nuclear arsenal, the United States must, as a matter of urgency, honestly fulfill its special responsibility in nuclear disarmament and create conditions for other nuclear weapon states to join the nuclear disarmament process. China firmly adheres to its policy of not being the first to use nuclear weapons. It does not engage in a nuclear arms race with any other country.
Thailand and Cambodia agreed to hold a meeting of defense officials on 24th December towards resuming a months-old ceasefire as fierce border fighting between them entered a third week with at least 80 people killed so far. Bangkok's defense chief on Tuesday sought to assuage any fears on the Cambodian side about the meeting taking place in Thailand, and the Thai Foreign Ministry said that the venue was still being discussed. The nation's long-standing border conflict reignited this month, shattering an earlier truce, killing more than 40 people and displacing over 900,000 on both sides. Thai Foreign Minister Sihasak Phuangketkeow announced the talks with Cambodia after a meeting in Malaysia's capital Kuala Lumpur with his counterparts from the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, of which Cambodia is also a member. Malaysia, the chair of the ASEAN regional bloc, had agreed to host the talks in its capital. Right now, take a look at what else is making news around the world. Hundreds marched through the city of Bukavu on Tuesday, calling for peace, security and inclusive dialogue in the Democratic Republic of the Congo's province of South Kivu. Demonstrators carried banners promoting coexistence and opposed the withdrawal of armed forces, while a memorandum urged civilian protection, peace restoration and community inclusion in political processes. Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum's recognition by the New York Times newspaper as a style icon highlights Zapotec artisan Claudia Vasquez, who designed her inauguration dress. The outfit brought global fame to Vasquez's brand. The artisan continues teaching embroidery to preserve indigenous textile traditions. A small group of Christians has returned to Syria's Idlib city over a decade after fleeing Islamic State terrorists. Only about 20 people have come back to repair their homes, hoping to celebrate Christmas with neighbors for the first time in years. Workers at the Grand Egyptian Museum began assembling King Khufu's second boat, restoring 1,650 wooden pieces for public display. The 42-meter-long reconstruction, a joint Egyptian-Japanese effort, is expected to take 3 to 5 years and is hailed as a major 21st century restoration project. And still to come on DD India Newshour. An expert take on India-Sri Lanka relations in light of Minister Jayashankar's visit to that country.
geopolitics and trade deals, economic challenges amid development, hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply changes,
welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. A quick recap of the headlines. India commits $450 million for reconstruction of cyclone-hit Sri Lanka. US President Donald Trump renews push for Greenland. Islands leader says our decisions are made here. US strikes vessel in Eastern Pacific, killing one. President Trump urges Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro to step down. And Indians protest against lynching of Hindu man in Bangladesh, clash with police in New Delhi. Right, going back to the top story we are tracking here on DD India News, Minister Jayashankar's visit to Sri Lanka. And joining us is Ambassador Sanjay Panda. He's a former Indian envoy to Turkey and Seychelles. Ambassador, welcome to DD India News. Now, first up, why is Minister Jayashankar visiting Sri Lanka? What's on the agenda?
Thank you, Ramesh.
Welcome.
Foreign Minister Jayashankar is there in Sri Lanka as the special envoy of Prime Minister Modi. I mean, this is an important demonstration of, India as a responsible neighbor and partner, keeping in with our neighborhood first policy. But more importantly, with Sri Lanka, we have always had a multifaceted relationship. And especially at this point in time, and Sri Lanka has been, recovering from the cyclone-hit, which has caused extensive damages. So India is discharging a very important role. And what the External Affairs Minister has done now is he has, this morning, he conveyed to President Dissanayake the message of Prime Minister Modi, the $450 million US dollar assistance, out of which $350 million is, is in the as soft loan, concessional loan, and 100 million grant. And this, if you see in, when the economic crisis happened in 22-23, and including this, the total aid assistance package to Sri Lanka during this period has been about 4 billion, which is quite huge. I mean, considering particularly at a time when there is global turbulence, it is very, very important. And out of this 4 billion, about 25% is the grant component. So it's a very important message that at your time of crisis, we are with you. And so the messaging is particularly important at this time.
Ambassador, as you said, Minister Jayashankar went there as Prime Minister Modi's special envoy. Just so our viewers understand, is it usual? What does it mean in diplomacy?
Yeah, I mean, it's Prime Minister sending a message. I mean, the message, there are many ways of sending a message, but when you send an important cabinet minister carrying your message directly, which is conveyed, that shows the importance that we attach to this relationship.
Right.
In fact, our relationship with Sri Lanka is particularly important, particularly at this stage when there are several challenges in our neighborhood at this point, and it's a troubled neighborhood now. So with Sri Lanka, we have these special ties which has grown, over the last few years. It has strengthened, and our intent has been made very clear. So this is, conveying a very important message.
Mhm.
Yes, there are other ways of communicating, but the foreign minister carrying the letter and passing it on to the president, as you can see now in this clip here.
Indeed.
There's a very important gesture, I would say.
Right. Ambassador, Minister Jaishankar called on, as we saw there, the President, the Prime Minister, the Foreign Minister, other ministers, the leader of opposition, Sri Lankan Tamil leaders. What does that tell you about the importance India attaches to all Sri Lankan stakeholders?
See, across the board, across the broad spectrum, I mean, there is acceptance of the fact of the role that India has played in Sri Lanka at this time of crisis. You know, right from 20 to 23, I mentioned about the economic crisis. And at this point in time, when Sri Lanka is reeling under this difficulty, India has been the first responder. I mean, the very first day that, we reached out, and now even helping restoring the infrastructure. So, starting from the ruling party, the opposition, the Tamil leaders, I mean, there is recognition of India's role across the board, which is particularly important. And you have to also appreciate something that over the years, I mean, we have gradually evolved from our Sagar policy, security and growth for all in the region, to the Mahasagar policy, which is our
Indeed.
Mahasagar.
If I can just quickly come in there, Ambassador. In fact, I wanted to ask you about this as well. What position does Sri Lanka occupy in India's neighborhood first policy as well as Vision Mahasagar, which stands for mutual and holistic advancement for security and growth across regions, Ambassador?
If you're following the discussions that Minister Jaishankar had with Foreign Minister Herat, I mean, it covered an entire gamut of the relationship, bilateral ties between our two countries. And, there were extensive discussions. Now, Sri Lanka, I mentioned, is very important in India's, from a strategic perspective, and as well as from our Mahasagar, as part of the Mahasagar vision, it has a very important place so far as we are concerned. And I would say that, at this time, that's what I was coming to, when Sagar vision was articulated by Prime Minister in Mauritius in 2015, 10 years down the line, the Mahasagar vision was articulated also during Prime Minister's visit to Mauritius earlier this year in March. So now you see that during these 10 years, I mean, India's position, I mean, if you see India's growth and the kind of growth trajectory that India has moved in, we were at that point when Sagar was articulated, we were probably 7th or 8th in a rank in terms of our economy. But now we are among the top 5. So now our contribution, as you can see in the Sri Lankan context, is commensurate with our growing capabilities. So this is very important. So that is why, as part of the Mahasagar vision, when we are standing strongly with the global south, Sri Lanka has a particularly important place in our scheme of things. And that is why during, as was demonstrated during the economic crisis, and even at this point in time, I think India has been with Sri Lanka, and I mentioned about at this point in time in this troubled neighborhood, Sri Lanka-India relation hold particular significance.
Absolutely. And just for the benefit of viewers joining us from around the world, Ambassador, let me just quickly remind them that India was quick to launch Operation Sagar Bandhu for cyclone-hit Sri Lanka. India delivered around 1,100 tons of relief material and over 14.5 tons of medicines and medical equipment as well. And now Minister Jaishankar says that India has committed $450 million more for reconstruction of areas affected by cyclone-hit. Ambassador, do you think such quick interventions by India in its neighborhood as a first responder have become a hallmark of New Delhi's policy?
No, absolutely. There's no two things about it. In fact, there is a the lot of initiative, I mean, on HADR, as part of our Sagar policy also, humanitarian assistance and disaster relief was an important, always an important component. And then we have now also led what is called the CDRI, I mean, that is the building composite disaster resilient infrastructure. So we believe in, during any disaster situation, any collaborative effort is what India has always championed. And here, when a crisis came in our neighborhood, India's response within hours, in the same day, two of our ships, one aircraft carrier and another naval ship, were there in Sri Lankan shores with relief material. Then Mi-17 helicopters were there in place. And then we were very quick to build bridges, and NDRF personnel helped in the, the relief and rehabilitation restoration efforts. So these are very important steps that India took. And of course, now India has cemented its place as the first responder in the region. And we have seen this evidence during the last few years, especially in the Sri Lankan context.
Indeed. I'm afraid that's all we have time for. I will have to leave it at that. Ambassador, thank you for joining us and sharing your thoughts with our viewers at home and abroad. Thank you for your time. Much appreciated. In other news, the Indian Coast Guard on Tuesday inducted its first pollution control vessel, Yard 1267 Samudra Pratap, as part of the U02 PCV project and Goa Shipyard Limited. The induction of Samudra Pratap, the Indian Coast Guard's first indigenously designed pollution control vessel, marks a milestone in strengthening India's maritime pollution response and defense self-reliance. Delivered by Goa Shipyard Limited, the vessel features advanced technology including a 30mm CRN-91 gun, remote control guns, integrated bridge and platform management systems, dynamic positioning and high-capacity pollution control equipment with over 60% of indigenous content. It enhances India's capabilities in pollution control, maritime law enforcement, search and rescue, and protection of its exclusive economic zone. Right now, take a look at what else is making news in India. IIT Delhi researchers have developed AILA, an artificially intelligent lab assistant that can perform scientific experiments like a human. Using a simple English chat interface, it converts instructions into code. The model was demonstrated on the atomic force microscope, a complex instrument used in material research. The Department of Social Justice and Empowerment organized a program called Celebration of Intergenerational Bonds on Tuesday at a school in Nowgong, Madhya Pradesh, to strengthen ties between generations and promote active, dignified aging. The event underscored the government's commitment to an inclusive, elder-friendly society. A tiger was killed on Tuesday in Palnadu district of Andhra Pradesh after being hit by a vehicle while crossing the Sirigipadu-Davupalli road. And still to come on DD India Newshour. President Draupadi Murmu presents National Science Awards. Fresh snowfall transforms Gulmarg into a winter wonderland. And the logo and mascot of the first ever Khelo India Tribal Games unveiled. Welcome back. You're watching DD India Newshour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has extended compliments to Speaker Om Birla and MPs across party lines for highlighting India's cultural and linguistic diversity on the floor of the Parliament as regional languages take precedence in Lok Sabha addresses. He posted on X, and I quote, "This is gladdening to see. India's cultural and linguistic diversity is our pride." Compliments to Speaker Om Birla ji and MPs across party lines for highlighting this vibrancy on the floor of the Parliament. President Draupadi Murmu presented the National Science Awards at Rashtrapati Bhavan, honouring scientists for their outstanding contributions to science, technology and innovation. Tapas Bhattacharya has more.
On Tuesday evening, Rashtrapati Bhavan in New Delhi witnessed a proud moment for Indian science as the National Science Awards 2025 were conferred. President Draupadi Murmu honoured 24 scientists and research teams for their outstanding contributions to science, innovation and research across the country. The awards were presented in 4 major categories: 1 Vigyan Ratna Award, 8 Vigyan Shri Awards and 14 Vigyan Yuva SSB Awards and 1 Vigyan Team Award. Union Minister Dr. Jitendra Singh, along with senior scientists, policymakers and eminent dignitaries attended the prestigious ceremony. The event aimed to recognize the dedication, innovation and critical role of scientists in nation building. Expressing gratitude to the central government, the award winners said such national recognition strengthens their confidence and inspires them to work with greater commitment.
These awards will have a long consequence on scientific community to take up research in advanced areas, so that the younger generation can also have this kind of a kind of direction or a motivation to do something new or innovative that can be recognized by government. So this will take long time to go there.
This is an excellent program of Government of India in encouraging the scientists who are at the forefront, contributing in various research and technology fronts in the country and beyond. And so this not only encourages the scientists who have already contributed, this is a great encouragement for our next generation, younger generation, and they will be getting the right path to contribute to the national program of our R&D and technology.
They added that the honor motivates them to take Indian science to greater heights on both national and international platforms. The ceremony marked an inspiring and proud moment for India's scientific community. Tapas Bhattacharya's report for DD India.
Fresh snowfall has transformed Jammu and Kashmir's Gulmarg into a winter wonderland, triggering a surge in tourist activity at the famed ski resort. Take a look.
A white blanket of fresh snow, frost-laden pine trees and joyous laughter echoing across the slopes. Gulmarg's charm has come alive as fresh snowfall has transformed the valley into a winter wonderland. Intermittent snowfall through Monday night, which continued well into Tuesday morning at the popular ski resort in North Kashmir, has brought cheer to tourists and locals alike, ending the long wait for the season's first major snowfall.
पहली बार दृश्य देखा ऐसा हमारी तरफ नैनीताल भी है वहाँ भी जाते हैं वहाँ थोड़ी पूरे उसमें एक बार ही बर्फ देखने मिलती है और यहाँ पे जो है आप अब ये बर्फ पड़ गई है यहाँ पे बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है जैसे वाइट पूरा वाइट हो गया और यहाँ के जो ये पेड़ है हमारे इन पे बर्फ जब पड़ जाती है थोड़ी सी अच्छी पड़ जाती है बर्फ तो बहुत ज्यादा तरुई नुमा लगता है.
The winter scenery has captivated tourists, many of whom had previously witnessed snowfall only on their mobile phones or television screens. The iconic saying about Kashmir being heaven on earth has come true for many.
मैं फर्स्ट टाइम यहाँ कश्मीर आई हूँ तो मतलब बोलते ना सब लोग कि हाँ सच्ची में यहाँ पे एक जन्नत है मतलब हाँ दिस इज हेवन बहुत अच्छा लगा यहाँ पे। पहले तो हम लोग आए थे, हमने देखा था यहाँ पे रील्स में देखते थे कि हाँ बर्फ में बहुत अच्छा लगता है, मतलब सब लोग स्नोमैन बनाते हैं, स्नो फॉलिंग बहुत अच्छा लगता है। जो यहाँ पे आके देखा तो ऐसा लग रहा है कि मतलब इसको हम क्या करें, बर्फ को हम एकदम से फोटोज कितने भी कैप्चर कर लिए, बट ऐसा लग रहा है हम यहीं पे बस जाएं, आके देखें, यहीं पे हम यहीं पे रहें।
सब बताते हैं कि है ना बहुत अच्छा लगता है गुलमर्ग में आके, इसलिए हमारी विश पूरी हो रही है। बर्फ देखना चाहते थे, बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है बर्फ में आके, बहुत अच्छा फील हो रहा है, मन नहीं कर रहा जाने का वापस।
Snowfall was also reported in other higher reaches of the Kashmir Valley, including Shopian and Gurez in Bandipora, while the plains received intermittent rain. Chances of further snowfall are slim, with the weather department forecasting generally cloudy skies and isolated rain across the valley. But overall conditions are expected to remain largely dry over the next few days.
Prime Minister Modi hosted Indian sports poster boy javelin thrower Neeraj Chopra and his wife Himani Moore at his residence in New Delhi on Tuesday. The Prime Minister shared the photographs on X. Earlier this year, the 27-year-old Chopra breached the 90-meter barrier, considered the gold standard in javelin throw at Doha Diamond League, but he failed to win a medal at the World Athletics Championships in Tokyo. He now hopes to return strong in 2026. The logo, theme song and mascot of the first ever Khelo India Tribal Games were unveiled in Bilaspur on Tuesday. The mascot is More Veer. It's derived from two words, More meaning mine and Veer symbolizing courage and valor. The games, which begin on 14th February, will feature 7 competitive sports and 2 demonstration sports. Chhattisgarh is the first state to host the landmark event dedicated exclusively to tribal athletes with the key objective of talent identification. The ceremony was graced by Chhattisgarh Chief Minister Vishnu Deo Sai, Deputy Chief Minister Arun Sao, and officials from the Sports Ministry, the State Government and the Sports Authority of India. India all-rounder Deepti Sharma has topped the ICC Women's T20I bowling rankings for the first time in her career. Sharma's bowling performance in the opening T20I against Sri Lanka saw her overtake Australian fast bowler Annabel Sutherland by 1 point. She has been consistent in the shortest format. In 130 T20I matches, she has taken 148 wickets at an average of 18.99. Sharma's all-round credentials remain just as strong. She is currently third in the women's T20I all-rounder rankings behind Hayley Matthews of the West Indies and New Zealand's Amelia Kerr. Indonesia's pacer Gide Priandana became the first bowler to claim 5 wickets in an over in a T20I match against Cambodia in Bali. The 28-year-old seamer single-handedly derailed Cambodia's chase in a 7-ball over that included a wide, completing his hat-trick and securing his team's victory by 60 runs in the series opener. Cambodia were 106 for the loss of 5 wickets and needing 168 for victory when Priandana was called on to bowl the 16th over. The right-armer completed his hat-trick and followed it up with a dot ball. He then took 2 wickets with the last 2 deliveries of his over to bundle out Cambodia for 107 runs. There are 14 instances of bowlers claiming 4 wickets in an over in international matches, including Sri Lankan Lasith Malinga's 4 wickets in 4 balls against New Zealand in a T20 in 2019. Australia's skipper Pat Cummins and Nathan Lyon were ruled out of the final 2 Ashes tests against England because of injury. Cummins returned from a lower back injury to lead Australia to victory in the 3rd test in Adelaide, taking 6 wickets in the match. Cummins will now target full fitness for the month-long T20 World Cup in India and Sri Lanka starting in February. Steve Smith, who captained the team in Cummins' absence during the first 2 tests, will lead the side again. Meanwhile, veteran spinner Leon faces surgery and an extended period on the sidelines. Quick bowler Jay Richardson and spinner Todd Murphy were named as a cover in a 15-man squad for the 4th test starting on Friday in Melbourne. Australia have already retained the famous urn as they lead the 5-match series 3-0. And that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. You can get the latest news on the DD India mobile app, which is available on both Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the QR code to download it. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran from all of us here in New Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.